Mm-hmm. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Siphon from Siphon TCG. And we're going to click to the cards tab. And it's another RTN A Disease hero. We have Dash, and this will be into two separate parts for you guys. If you guys want to go to the next video in the series, this will be talking about Control Dash. This one that we are doing right now is going to be the hybrid version, which is the most popular version of Dash, and this is for people that might be watching this video to learn how to combat this deck. This is the style of deck I would more practice against and look to fight against than the Control Dash version, even though I do believe the Control Dash version is better. I will admit there is some personal bias there. And also, I do think that Control Dash struggles into Lexi, where this hybrid version of Dash does have more game. And what we have aimed to this deck, we have aimed to give ourselves the best possible matchup spread when it comes to fighting all three of the heroes that are currently at the top, being Odom, Dromai, and Lexi. Unfortunately, we have sacrificed in a few other matchups, but that is fine. And we pretty much pivot a little bit less to the control package than we normally would. I think in most games we probably are going more aggro. But I will go ahead and jump straight to the sideboard to show you guys what our defensive package is if we are going to control, we are siding in all of our D-reacts and our reinforced line. If you are going against a CNC hero, you can put in the reinforced line if you just want the more safety, but I want to strip less of the mechanologist, non-mechanologist cards from the boost build. But again, if you are going defensive, we have Fate Foreseen, Sink Below being 3-0 for 4 D-Reacts. We have an additional chamber, 3 purifiers. Again, reinforced line and unmovable to stop the big attacks. As well as 1 remembrance to recover tools against certain decks. Or even in the control plan where we sometimes still will boost, we can remembrance back key pieces to help resist fatigue. And then obviously Command and Conquer just being a generic 2 for 6 that also doubles as a popper for Dromai. So getting into the deck, starting off with the legs, it will always be Achilles Accelerator. Achilles Accelerator having natural AB is really good if Wizard ever is in your local meta. Being with instant speed to gain an action point, have Pseudo go again if you end up just bricking off of a boost, which isn't too likely to happen here, but just in case it ever does. And also it gives you very, very big plans with Pistol, late game, as well as with conjunction with things like High Octane, and you're starting other attacks where you do want to keep a certain density of cards, and if you can get a nice combo play where you want to go boost Achilles Accelerator, have 2 extra points, and not boost your final attack to want to go into your pistols. You can just do a lot of cute things with Achilles Accelerators, and just the straight up action point as well as instant speed is really key. Our headpiece is going to be Crown of Providence in a lot of matchups. There are going to be a few matchups where we do run Virizion model, but they are not often. Crown of Providence just being nice CNC protection as well as an additional 2 health. And card fixing, absolutely probably best in slot for this style of deck. Galvanic Blender, again, this is probably the best in slot. I know a lot of people are running Goliath Gauntlet. I am personally not a fan of Goliath Gauntlet. You were putting all your eggs in the basket that you time walk your opponent, because a lot of times, unless that attack has dominant, which it usually does not, Goliath Gauntlet just says you don't get to have a turn. Which, if our hero wasn't so glass cannony and fatigue themselves, a strategy like that wouldn't be too bad, because our opponent most likely is going to block anyway, because on average we can win most turn cycles if it is straight a damage race. The Glass Gauntlet just says either you're not over blocking or even blocking or just giving an additional card, and a lot of times it's not too likely that you actually leak over enough damage to make the Glass Gauntlet work, where this additional block being you can give a 3 block and a 1 block to stop something like a snatch or something. Just stopping breakpoints, I think, is very, very big in here when on hits are at a premium in Flesh and Blood. Techno Foundry Heart, actually the biggest reason we are playing in this deck is not even the action. It's actually the fact that it'll block 3 throughout the game, which is absolutely insane. Again, also helps with breakpoints, but the active availability is really nice for getting resources. And one strategy that I don't see a lot of Dash players use is actually pitch stacking with Dash, even with the aggro version. And something like this actually can help you get. So if you want to late game stack like Combustor Courier, or like High Octane into Combustor Courier into like, I don't know, something else like a big T-Bone or a big Magnetic Shockwave or just something big. This secretly can actually get you to that faster. You are sacrificing a lot of cards in your deck for very low cost. But I do think that is a strategy that some dashes should consider in a lot of matchups that are slower. Going to Technoplasm Pistol, just the best in slot. There's no reason to run any other weapon here. Except maybe the one that came out of Dynasty, the name escapes me, the one that has overpower and fires for free. But I do think where that is lacking is if you're not constantly boosting, getting those counters on, your deck becomes way less in rate. And because obviously we're switching to another plan, taking away more slots to be able to switch to that plan, so like we would have to play both weapons, is I would rather just have the actual slot to make the version of the deck I'm playing better rather than wanting to side on another weapon just to look a little more cute. Virizion model. I do like this in your pitch stacking matchups or your Arcane Barrier matchups. I like this into Runeblade specifically because it has AB2. In the rare case that they are trying to resist or in your return, which they should be doing. Unlike a lot of Arcane Barrier, when you're running a KB1 into Runeblade, they'll always leak damage, so they have that end game against you. But here, you pitch the blue all the same, or they all the same. It stops all of the damage. Going on to the 60 card main deck. This is a deck where we will always run the exact same 60 core unless we are going into Dromai or unless we are going into the control version. We're off with 2 red Combustible Cur and 3 blue. I like this spread because while this is a very, very powerful boost attack, the fact that it costs 2 and only comes in for a base of 4 and 2 does hinder a lot on a lot of turns. Your opponent most likely would have blocked anything you put in front of them anyway. So the whole notion of you can't let Combustible Courier ever hit, where there's not a lot of worlds where they let your first or second attack hit anyway. Because if someone is trying to race dash, they're most likely wrong. Right? They're going to try to fatigue you. So saying I'm going to make you block is not really accurate because they are most likely going to block anyway. But it is just a good attack. If we can somehow get this into a mixed part of the chain, it's very good. But it does offer a breakpoint nonetheless. Obviously, the red being at 4 means I need 2 cards, a direct, or a piece of equipment, which is extremely huge. And the one thing you will notice about every card in this deck, which is very important, it all blocks for 3. High Octane being one of the best combo cards just in all in Flesh and Blood, like just period. The fact that it cantrips and just gives you more action points. This is what you can really do. I like pitching this late game with a bunch of blues. So when I High Octane, then I can spit a bunch of attacks out. And I have 1 or 2 blues in my hand, possibly because I set up a big hand, or like a big 5-card hand, or I possibly drew cards. I do like the High Octane, so I can swing my pistol a bunch. Swinging your pistol for like 3 or 4 times a turn can absolutely just win you the game. Even mid game and early game, like where I do like it a little bit less, but none the same. Just being able to swing with pistol 3 to 4 to 5 times in a turn, even without induction chamber, is just absolutely nuts. Obviously, we have 1 induction chamber. Even if we do go to the control build, we only have 2. I know a lot of builds do run 3, but they're also on things like BIOS update, which we are not on. So the extra density in items is not really what we're looking for. They're reds, which is not good into matchups that taxes matter, or if we have a very resource-heavy hand, as well as they don't block. So 1 is obviously fine in the main deck. There are very few times we will start with it, but there are a few. But I do think it is just good enough to where we do want it in the main deck. 3 maximum velocity. I don't like this as much as an attack as it's in a popper. If you are able to pitch stack this where you can actually get maximum velocity to hit assuredly, because one issue that I see with a lot of dash players, they'll tuck a maximum velocity in Arsenal, and even if they have a 4-card hand, they still can't maximum velocity. And that is just an IP penalty, and IP penalty yourself is just not good in this game. You want constant card flow. You want to be able to do things. Now, if you were just committed to maybe having your deck's resource curve a little bit lower, maximum velocity can get a little bit better, but you're having to change a lot of things in your deck and sacrifice a lot of power just to be able to maximum velocity when you could just have more consistent turns, turn over turn. But again, this is a 3 block, it's a popper, and when it is on, it is amazing. Have you ever double maximum velocity someone? Yeah, it happened to me at the Calling Indy, and it on my own stream hurt. One of the differences I have in my hybrid list and most other people don't is payload. For two reasons. One, as an in-game closer, this is absolutely amazing. While it doesn't have boost itself, this is what your chain closer is. This is how you really push the pace late game, as well as a popper for Dromai. That again, that is a big thing. Thirdly, actually, this is just a nice hand. If you want to block with 2 cards and send the classic 2-card 6, 2-card 7, 2-card 8, payload is something you can do. It's a 2-card 6. It's on rate with things like Command and Conquer damage wise, but obviously it doesn't have an actual on hit effect. Obviously, it just gets better if you're able to pair any other card with this. One of the best cards in the game, period. Even though Dash has a very small card pool, she has some of the most powerful cards in the entire game. We have Pulse Wave Harpoon, which is a free Thoughtseize, period. Well, it's not more a Thoughtseize, it's more like a peak than a Thoughtseize. And your opponent does get to choose what gets revealed. Unless you've boosted about 3 or 4 times, then obviously you get the whole entire hand there. Which why I really love this card. This does punish the people that try to race us and try to go on the no-block plan. They will get super dumpstered by a Pulse Wave Harpoon because they're not going to block anything. They're going to try to keep 4 cards in hand. You're going to Pulse Wave Harpoon, know their whole entire hand, and say, give me a card by force. So now, they took a whole bunch of damage. They've still lost a card. Now their turn's less impressive, which can just continuously give you tempo. So my Pulse Wave Harpoon is insane. One Rainbow T-Bone. Literally, this card's just ignorant, bro. I think this is one of the ways that you can actually fight into Ranger. If you see 2 of these in your hand, it might be correct to sack a single turn just to have 2 and maybe 3 if you end up drawing another one. Because a big thing is getting their New Horizons or their resource piece being like their tunic or something. Because likely they're going to probably give you their snaps first or their bullseye bracers. Then the second T-bone they'll give you the other one. Then if you follow things like a Magnetic Shockwave or T-bone, you are getting tunic or you're getting New Horizons, which both are just amazing. And obviously, if they actually commit their bullseye bracer or their snaps at any point, having multiple T-bones just ensures that you can get the New Horizon. And Lexi without New Horizons is a different hero. It's still fine. It's still very playable, but obviously a little bit less explosive. We're on red and blue throttle. This is just a nice on rate attack coming in for 6 or 4. Not much to say. It is just good on rate. Same thing with 0 to 60. This is coming in as a 0 for 4 or a 0 for 2. Which, the 0 for 2 is obviously not impressive. Being a blue block 3 is quite impressive. And then 0 for 60 being a 0 cost breakpoint. Doesn't have an on hit, but still the breakpoint nonetheless loud means it will leak through. And without the on hit, people don't block it. So it's a free 4 damage. We are on Rainbow Zipper Hit. I do believe that this card is pretty good. The reason that we're running Rainbow Zipper Hit rather than Rainbow 0 to 60 is just the amount of damage per turn that we can do. And when we do activate things like Techno Foundry Heart and stuff and be able to actually use the extra resources to play things like Zipper Hit and stuff like that, I do enjoy the extra damage. Because if you play 6 0 to 60s and 6 Zipper Hit, obviously your damage turn over turn will be much higher. And I think that's what you're really aiming to do with this boost build. You're aiming to get your opponent dead. And just the extra damage turn after turn is very important. Spark of Genius is just a free tutor and a free draw. This is one of the things that you will actually high octane. On a high octane turn or on a Achilles Accelerator's turn, this is probably one of your biggest pieces because not only do you get to tutor something sometimes for free, but you also get to draw a card. And just you pretty much get to get 2 free cards out of your deck that can just swing and turn. Alternatively, if you just have a 1 or 2 card hand with Spark of Genius, you can just go fetch something. It's not that bad. And at worst, it's a yellow block 3, so it's a good resource card and a good blocking card. High Speed Impact, it's a blue block 3, and this 2 damage, a lot of times, is one of the few 2 damages that will get blocked. Because what people are going to be scared of is like, oh, his next attack that he uses has Dominate. So like you could have a turn where you go high speed impact, hit combustible courier into like payload or pulse wave harpoon or like magnetic shockwave, like something, and that is just a lot of damage. And it is very very hard for people to keep up with turns like that. Those turns don't happen often, but when they do, they're very very good. Magnetic Shockwave, probably one of the best chain enders in the whole entire game, as well as being a blue block 3. Again, this is the key to getting the Ranger matchup a little bit closer. If you are able to pull their New Horizons or their Tunic, you are winning. We're running 2 Technocore. I think Technocore is... It's probably the most middling of the 3 items that we play, but we run as 2 because it's a blue, which is very, very important. And in certain scenarios, like into the if you board into control, Technocore actually does get much better because it represents a free pistol shot and a free go again, which is super important. Lastly, we have 1 Techno Pounder, which is going to be our starting item in the majority of games, and this just allows you to hit certain breakpoints with your attacks and just push over damage. Overall, I do like the place of Hybrid Dash. I do think that the extra poppers in this list do help the draw my matchup enough to where I do think against the top 3 decks in the format, you do have game. Obviously, again, you're sacrificing other matchups to have the deck built like this, and you're very susceptible if you are forced to block. Because even though we do have some decent turns, like, again, like the payload turn, they're less impressive than other heroes like 2 card hands. But obviously, being able to have game in the top 3 heroes is amazing. And this deck does make Odin cry, because both versions make Odin cry. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, favorite, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Stay tuned for the Control Dash video.